The next thing that we probably do is empowering individuals. So we do this really and promote them to become agents of change. We're giving them the knowledge, the skills, tools to really advocate for respectful workplaces and DEI in their communities, workplaces, as well as their personal lives. And the other thing I would say that we work in is to really make a systemic change. So we work with organizations, institutions, we try and influence policy to really try and promote some systemic changes in getting diversity, equity, and inclusion out there. I'm not going to spend much more time, but our three focus areas have been, from the moment we started, was in the corporate pillar. That's what Shehara leads at the moment. So this is, we collaborate with corporates to really integrate DEI into their business practices. We also support and work with entrepreneurs, and we're very excited about this. And, you know, I kind of do a bit of work in this space, which is in the schools and higher education. And lastly, I think I would really like to encourage people to join us. You know, you can choose to partner with us, or you can choose to volunteer with us. So we have a lot of initiatives, and we really love to have people with skills and time to support our initiatives, as well as a company. We already have some great collaborations, but we'd just like to improve that and collaborate more. I think I'm done.
Yeah, thanks, Ness. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that introduction. All right, so I think a lot of us are now on this discussion. Welcome, everyone. If you missed the first few minutes, we've introduced Diversity Collective to our audience, and you're all here for the launch of Respectful Workplaces. So for this next part, I think it's important that we unpack what this topical concept is, and we understand what sort of impact it will have on our businesses, it's already had on our organizations, and why it's become such a priority for most of us here today. So to do this, I'd like to invite Bani Chandrasena. Bani is currently the president of Diversity Collective. She's also an HR and DI consultant, and her career spans 20 plus years in the industry. She's also an entrepreneur working on organic agriculture and livelihood venture. So Bani, I'd like you to talk to us a little bit about the positive impact that Respectful Workplace agenda has on our organizations, and why it's become such a priority for us today. Over to you, Bani.
Thanks, Shehara. So yes, if you think of the business imperative that most of the companies are working on right now, it is, I would say, the situation of making sure that they have innovation and creativity. And I would think the talent war is an element that all companies are, grappling with right now. So if you think of respectful workplaces, I dial it back a little bit and sort of try to explain that all these elements that I spoke about that companies need to focus on stems from having the right kind of culture. An inclusive culture, as we call it, would capture all of these elements. Collaboration is an element that comes into play when you do have a mutually respectful culture in a company. Collaboration is much needed in order to get to creativity and innovation. Similarly, when you think of attracting talent and retaining talent, having the right kind of culture where people feel like they belong, that they're accepted for who they are, becomes really important. So when you think of respectful workplaces, and what we're launching today and are going to talk more about is actually how the first steps of how you would get to a respectful workplace is what DCLK is launching and will be talking about. We've been talking about this for a couple of years, to be fair, thanks to IFC. And this slide you see in front of you is the roadmap that we believe will help companies figure out how to actually get started on this journey towards an inclusive culture, and this step of getting into being set up, sustaining themselves as a company that has a respectful workplace. It's broken into 3 stages. Stage 1 is about actually, before you get into action of doing initiatives, taking steps, we encourage you to actually assess the situation, understand employee perspectives, understand the ground situation, and if it is a problem, understand the size of the problem. There are different ways to do it, which is what DCLK helps you with, and the trainings kind of start you on that journey. And that will be stage one or step one that we would encourage companies to go through. Once you understand and have a better understanding of the situation at hand in the company, how employees understand the company, you might have good intentions, you would have policies, but how your employees understand it is important. Hence why it's time now to get to stage two, which is the initiatives and the actions the company needs to take. There is a series of them. We've just named a few of it that are related to respectful workplaces. Sorry, there are these noises coming. Primary, most important would be ensuring that you have leadership commitment. Even if you take a little time to ensure you have the right buy-in and you have role models at leadership, that will be one of the first initiatives within stage two. Identifying and training the right personnel in the company. And when I say staff, I don't mean just HR, I would mean the HR team, I would mean managers, the leadership, other focal points in the company is another important step. You have your policies, great. Reviewing them and making sure they fit some of these intentions and actions that you want to take forward is important. If you don't have policies, we will be providing with you with a guided policy that you can use and amend and customize to your company. All of this in place, you do need to raise awareness with everybody. Every employee needs to have a clear understanding of what they can do if they are in a situation, what are the policies and the actions the company would take. Transparency is extremely important. And setting that up obviously is not a one step or a one action initiative. It is something that you have to continue. One more important step, I think sometimes we tend to overlook in general, being in HR in companies, I mean, I'll be the first person to put my hand up, is that while we train and get employees as well as company ready to handle all of this, making sure mental health is also taken into account, because everybody has stresses in their life, not really just to work. And how we help our employees, our leadership, your focal points, people who get involved in this whole process and volunteer, deal with it becomes extremely important if you want to sustain this inclusive culture of respect. Those would be some of the steps, and the training will take you through the detail, but we do also have consultancy, etc., to help you kind of handhold you through some of these things as you go on this journey of inclusion in your company. Stage 3 would be, once you have set 1 and 2 in place, making sure that all these steps you've taken are tracked, monitored, reviewed, so that you can actually take accountability and monitor your progress. And it is about making sure that, you know, the steps you've taken that have landed well, you repeat. Things that need improvement, you review and amend. So these would be the 3 stages that we would take you through in the training, as well as help you understand and help you kind of land respectful workplaces in your company and ensure that it is sustained in your company. There'll be more about this through the rest of the session. Thank you for listening. Over to you, Shay.
Thank you so much, Bani. Thank you for talking us through the roadmap. I think it's given all of us a lot of context into what this will actually look like on the ground in our respective organizations. So for the next piece, I'd like to actually delve into the business case for respectful workplaces a little further. And now if you look at our partnership with IFC, right? IFC's Respectful Workplace Program supports the private sector in emerging markets to create safe and resilient workplaces through demonstrating the business case for action, providing businesses with advisory services and resources and tools to help these organizations address this issue. So I'd like to divert your attention for the next 2 minutes to a quick video before we introduce our next speaker. Tisura, over to you.
Every year, Sri Lankan businesses bear an unseen cost. It's the cost of workplace violence and harassment. Across the 9 companies in the study, this translates to a cost of more than $1.7 million. IFC's business case for creating respectful workplaces in Sri Lanka found 6 days of work are lost per employee each year because of workplace violence and harassment. 3 out of 5 people have experienced some form of workplace bullying, sexual harassment, and/or online violence. 1 in 5 people surveyed also said they felt unsafe at work in the previous month. Bullying, sexual harassment, and online violence impact employees of all genders, ages, experience, and race across all industries. Some, such as people with disabilities, reporting is also a serious problem. Employees are more likely to say that their colleagues had experienced sexual harassment and online violence rather than disclosing their own experience. This could be because most managers surveyed didn't seem to understand the impact of bullying and harassment or how to effectively address these issues. Workplace violence and harassment is pervasive, systemic, and costly. But this can change. Your business can be the catalyst, taking a strong stance to create a respectful workplace. Your business can introduce policies and best practices that support survivors and hold perpetrators of bullying and harassment accountable. Train contact teams that improve employees' well-being and safety at work. You can also strengthen tech resources as an effective deterrent against online harassment. Encourage employees to reach out to community support services. Increase workforce diversity and inclusion to promote a safer and more respectful environment. These changes will improve employee health and safety, leading to increased engagement and productivity, decreasing absenteeism and turnover while boosting the company's public image. A workplace free of violence and harassment is the foundation of a successful, sustainable business. For more information on how you can eradicate workplace violence and harassment, sign up for the IFC DFAT Respectful Workplaces Training Program in partnership with Diversity Collective Lanka.
Thank you so much, Tisura. We do have a comment from one of our participants today about the video. Absolutely. I think we're very fortunate to have partnered with IFC on this initiative as well. And on that note, we're again privileged to have one of our speakers here today from the IFC, Arti Arunasalam. She's currently the country gender lead at IFC, advancing gender equality and economic inclusion in Africa and South Asia. Arti, I'd like to invite you to speak to us a little bit about the research that IFC has done, and talk us through the business case for respectful workplaces. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone, and really excited to be joining all of y'all today. And I want to take a moment and really appreciate Diversity Collective Lanka and Women in Management, because they are our partners in actually pivoting the respectful workplace practices in Sri Lanka on a broader scale. And I also want to say that this is a first of its kind initiative, and we're really excited for this partnership because it is going to lead to a lot more movement changes, catalytic behavior within the country. And that's something we're very confident about. So I just want to say that gender is a very critical strategic priority for IFC. And that's the reason that we have been working on the largest country gender program over the past 6 years. And we're really focusing on very few specific targeted approaches, and respectful workplaces is also one of those key elements. And I just want all of you all to think, right? So 2 out of 3 percentage of your, how am I saying it? Yeah, through 2 out of 3 parts of your life is kind of spent on work. And that's like close to 90,000 hours is where we really spend it purely just working, right? And the least we would really want is like to be in a workplace that is respectful, provides us that dignity and real meaning to why we kind of really come and kind of work on a very trustworthy, purpose-driven manner. And we have enough and more research that really says, as you kind of thrive in this environment, it leads to better innovations, morale, business productivity, and growth. There are multiple global statistics that's available, especially with ILO, that says that 1 in 5 people actually undergo gender-based violence or harassment in the workplace globally. And this number really gets skewed when it comes to Asia, and especially in the Pacific, it's even worse, where it's almost 3 to 4 out of women in particular out of 5 people undergo gender-based violence or harassment. So a couple of years ago, so this was back in 2019, for Sri Lanka, we did not have a business case, right? Or a database or a baseline to really state where exactly do we stand. And that's the video that you saw, which really highlighted in terms of where we are as a country and what exactly is the business gap that we need to address when it comes to gender-based violence and harassment. A few key takeaways that I could probably highlight on is that when you look at the number, 3 out of 5 people, it does not say whether it is men or women. So what was interesting for us to see is that both men and women in Sri Lanka do undergo some form of sexual harassment, bullying, or online harassment. So that exactly is where the scope of the study really was. The second piece is what we also noticed is that persons with disability tend to be more vulnerable in such context and environment compared to the others. The third key element is what we noticed is this was also a time to know that when we did the study, it was during COVID, and it was also a time where we had to do the study more on a telephonic survey methodology versus a more in-person methodology where we felt that the responses could have been very different. And when we also asked the questions around, have you experienced where there were less number of responses coming for it versus do you know of anyone who has experienced it? Whereas the responses were a lot more. So what we are also currently doing is that, I mean, it was very clear, right? When we say that $1.7 million has been lost for 9 companies on an annual basis. And we're confident that this number could increase. What we're currently doing right now with IFC is where we're actually conducting an end-line survey to really see what is there a cost savings or is there isn't, or what is exactly that as organizations we can tweak or reevaluate or see how that really goes, right? So that's what we are doing in 2004 right now. But I just want to kind of give you an idea that this was something we started in 2019, 20, and the kind of progress we've made so far. So once we had the study, then the broader question was like, yes, we were able to support a few companies who were part of the broader peer learning platform, She Works Sri Lanka partnership in Sri Lanka. And then we also felt that there was a bit of a gap. Yes, we can support from a policy, creating an enabling environment lens, but there was still a gap in terms of what kind organizations required the tools, right? What is a bystander intervention? How do we really create a survivor center approach? So that's when we really partnered with DCLK on a pilot approach where I'm really thrilled and excited with the progress and the growth that DCLK really has made, because in that pilot, we were able to reach close to 20 companies. And that actually allowed us to kind of regroup again, relook at our model, and really also make it a lot more robust. So a few months ago, we had launched the training of the trainers program, and that's where we partnered with WIM and DCLK together, and we onboarded 26 trainers. And when I say this, and probably the trainers in this call can kind of resonate with it. It was not an easy walk in the path, right? It was a very tough, like there was serious exams, evaluation, and it was a very extensive processes. And I must say that all 26 trainers really came out with flying colors. And one of the fantastic thing is like each one of y'all or the corporates here is going to be trained with the best, the creme de la creme for the country. And that much of vetting is something that I've really went to that particular extent. What do we plan to do from here? So we do aim to reach close to 200 companies, serving at least 40,000 employees across the country. I know this is an ambitious goal, but when you really look at it, it might not really be an ambitious because it's becoming the need of the hour, and you have the right tools. And it's also a fantastic opportunity which can actually strengthen the private sector capacity to foster the culture of respect, dignity, across the island. And also, I want to kind of say that we are working on a phase 2, where the first part is for the private sector. The second part is very particularly for the SMEs. And so that's something that we're curating from scratch, and the team, a new set of trainers will be undergoing that in December. But lastly, there are multiple collective efforts that has really gone through, right? But I just want each and every one of you to know that you're going to be a part of something which is a lot more larger or bigger. And if I may, I can even call it as a movement. And why I say that is because all this input is going to translate into contributing to the ratification of the ILO's Convention on Violence, Harassment, which is called as the C190, which formalizes the right to work free from violence and harassment. So that's our goal, and that's where we are getting to. So I just want to close by saying that, yes, we've embarked on a fantastic journey with both DCLK and WIM. So I just want all the corporates to really also come forward and be champions in really fortifying a respectful workplace culture that stands resilient against any effects of harassment. With that, I would say that let's all make a visible change. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Aarti. If that wasn't a compelling business case, then I don't know what is. I think everyone here today understands now the case for respectful workplace agenda and why it's become such a priority for all of us, especially with all that's going on around the world as well. Now more than ever, it's very important that we participate collectively in this sort of an impactful initiative. So on that note, I'd like to now move forward to a lineup of speakers. And so you've heard the business case from the IFC, you've heard from us at DCLK, and how you can take this back to your organization. But I think what would really help you now is to hear from those who've gone about this journey and what sort of barriers they've had to overcome, the importance of leadership, buy-in in this initiative, and also how how their efforts transcend goals and objectives and targets in this space, and how there have been cultural transformations because certain organizations have commenced this journey already with us. And so on that note, I would like to now invite Ravi Jayasekara from Hemas Holdings PLC. Ravi is the acting CEO and Group Chief People Officer. He is a growth catalyst and he's passionate about helping organizations change and people succeed. Ravi, I'd like to ask you to walk us through the respectful workplace journey at Hemas. What has that been like, especially focusing on the role that the leadership played in taking this forward and doing something impactful at Hemas. Over to you.
Thanks, Shay, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me on the call. Shay, before I answer that question, I would like to set some context for the audience as well. So Hemas is a conglomerate with 6 different businesses, which are very different in nature. And one of the questions we started to ask ourselves and answer was, so what is the culture we want? And that was not easy given our businesses are extremely different from one to another. And we kind of zoned into say, actually, we can't have one culture across all businesses because we have hospitals, we have pharma, we have manufacturing. So we came to a point to say, okay, each business should have the culture that engages its employees and delivers to its clients, but we wanted some common themes. And one of the biggest drivers for us was how we practice diversity, equity, and inclusion practices, and how do we create a psychological safe place to work. So psychological safety became a very big piece for us to focus on, simply because we understand, I think we heard from the speakers before, from Aarti as well. Yes, we have gender-based issues, but we also find that it's not necessarily gender-based when it comes to office environments. So looking at psychological safety and respect, and we wanted to build a culture where our leaders empower and inspire. Personally, I just feel that this cannot be an HR initiative. It doesn't work that way. And also personally, I would like the changes we do in the culture to be actually felt by the people. So the success of these initiatives for us is not how many initiatives we run or how many ticks we put in our HR initiative checklist. It is the feedback that our own people give, saying how do they actually feel from before to after initiative has been completed. So we had two needs when we looked out at, okay, who do we partner with in this journey? One was we wanted a practical approach. You know, we all know that there's theory and we all know the theory, but in a practical sense, how do we make it happen and how do we phase it? How do we do it incrementally so it builds one or another? And the second one was we were very keen to sustain whatever we do, because again, we've seen initiatives come and go, but this cannot be something like that because this we want to invest for the longer term. So that's when in that journey we met Bani and DCLK, and I must say in the last year plus, it's been a fantastic partnership because DCLK brought to us solid professional experience. Again, it was beyond a consultancy. It was people who had actually been there and done this and understood what the workplace actually was like. And there was, of course, the backing from IFC and the science-based approach to all of it. So for us, it was a perfect partnership, and we worked with Bani and the DCLK team quite extensively, and we are making very good progress. And as I said, my barometer of success is the feedback we get from our staff, and we got very positive feedback on the initiatives we've run so far. Just to touch on what Shay spoke about before about the importance of leadership, I think the success that we've had so far, maybe in the last 6 to 9 months since we started this journey with DCLK, is the fact that this was not a positioned as HR initiative. This was positioned as a leadership imperative that all of us as leaders had to buy into. So the first discussion started with the chairman and with our REMCO, and then we took it to our managing directors, where all of us signed up to say, yes, we must do this. And yes, this has to be supported because Respectful Workplace is one initiative under our HEMA's United DEI umbrella. And therefore, it got the leadership support that it should get. Later on, you'll hear from Dr. Dushantan, who's one of our senior leaders in the group, working in hospitals, and you'll hear how some of this has been brought to life. And it's really being felt by the team members in the group, and I'm very happy with the progress that we made in that sense. So a few takeaways from me. I think, firstly, I think it's important to start with the why you are doing it, and it has to be part of a bigger purpose. Second, leadership buy-in, support, and commitment is important. Third, you need to be able to sustain this through some of the practices and the policies that have to be then put in place. And fourth, select the right partner. And we are very happy with the partnership we have with DCLK. Yeah, that's it, Shay. And hand over back to you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Ravi. Thank you so much for that. So I noticed a few joining in, and I just wanted to wrap up also. Ravi, I think a few key things that you spoke about was that this is not just a tick box, and it's beyond an HR initiative. And you did have leadership buy-in at HEMA's. Also, HEMA's being a large conglomerate and diverse industries, you were able to make sure that this translated into something that was relevant to everybody. Also, a practical approach was important. important, and it's also important to sustain these sort of initiatives in the long run, so they really get embedded in your culture. So thank you so much, Ravi. We just heard from Hema's Holdings. Our next speaker is Ruchini Veeravardhanan. So Ruchini is going to approach this from the perspective of a trainer. She is certified trainer for Diversity Collective and on respectful workplaces as well. Ruchini Veeravardhanan is currently Senior Manager, Talent Management and Development at Cisco Labs Sri Lanka. Ruchi, thank you so much for being with us today. I'd just like to ask you about your experience as a trainer and what it's been like partnering with organizations on this journey.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So when I started my journey, so when I started at Cisco Labs, so this was in 2021, I was tasked with overseeing diversity, equity, and inclusion. So at that time, my initial understanding of DE&I was very limited. And we were just beginning to introduce these principles into our organization. So this included updating our policies and aligning our culture with DEI and all these values. So while we were doing this, it was very difficult for me because I realized my knowledge was limited, and it was just you do a training and then, so what, how do you sustain it? So a transformative part for me in this journey was the opportunity to train, be a trainer for respectful workplaces. So IFC had a 2-day training where we were, so 5 of us at the time, we were trained. And then with this experience incredibly helped me because it was very impactful. It did not just help me expand my knowledge, but it completely changed my approach to DE&I. And with this support and with DCLK support, I actually moved from the mindset of basic compliance, but completely focused on creating a genuine awareness and fostering long-term changes in my organization. So it was just not for one organization, but when we did trainings for many other, we did public trainings, quite a few public trainings. So it's been 2 years. So it completely helped me to look outward as well, where it aligned with my own purpose, where I realized that we were making changes in Sri Lanka as a whole, right? So because we were slowly reaching out to other companies as well, because not only that, so as a HR professional or human resource management professional, the respectful workplaces values, it became central for my personal and professional growth as well, because I realized how I speak, how I deal with others, and my way of respecting everyone else also changed. So I firsthand saw how when we create these environments, how it goes beyond and it creates and it promotes respect across organizations. And I'm very hopeful that as a country, these little changes that we are making as trainers would make a huge difference. So currently in my role, I've seen my company, just like Ravi said, it's a cultural change. It's not just one-off thing. So the training will help to understand, how you create this journey, because it's a journey. It's not a one-off thing. So how do you start this journey? And as trainers, as DCLK, we are able to be with these companies, support this full journey into creating this cultural change, right? So it's a lasting impact across workplaces. And as I said, it has helped me to align my personal purpose with my professional work. And I always thankful. So we had a refresher as well. So constantly I feel like I'm growing and making a change. So yeah,
Thank you. Thanks, Ruchi. No, really appreciate it. And I think a different perspective altogether from one of our trainers and what that impact has been like for her. And I noted that you said the values of respectful workplace agenda really resonating with you personally and professionally. And I think that's what it is, Ruchi. This is not just, another training program that's being rolled out. I think we're looking at systemic changes that will be impacted as a result. So thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us as a trainer. Okay, so before we move on to our next speaker, we do have a quick question that we'd like to ask our audience, and this will be sort of addressed in the next segment. And we'd like you to put your thoughts into the chat box, and we'll take maybe 30 seconds to do so, right? So what do you think is the biggest barrier to creating a respectful workplace? You've heard the business case, you've got a glimpse of what the roadmap could look like for your organization, right? You may have actively or passively experienced respectful workplaces, or the opposite, right? So what do you think is the biggest barrier to creating a respectful workplace? Can we get some thoughts in the chat box very quickly, please? Okay, perfect. So we have some thoughts coming in. That's fantastic. We've got unconscious bias, we've got culture, yeah, commitment. I think we've already heard that what's important is to make sure that we sustain these sort of initiatives. How do we do that? There are existing subcultures in our organizations. How do we tackle some of it? Attitudinal changes, individual differences. Amazing. So I'm going to ask you to keep these coming while I introduce our next speaker to you. So our next speaker is Oshana Dai. She's the Chief People Officer at Fortitude. She's a talent architect and coach. She's passionate about new ideas and new ways of doing things. Osh, I'd like you to take it on from here. I hope you've got a few responses in the chat that will help you segue into your discussion.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Shay. Thanks for facilitating that. Good morning, and I'm honored to represent both Fortitude and the Association of HR Professionals at the launch of Respectful Workplaces initiative by DCLK. So at Fortitude, our core values are caring, honesty, integrity, and passion. It's known as CHIP, and it is central to who we are. Caring and respect stands out as we strive to make these values a lived experience across our global workplace, where we are present in over 10 countries. My personal journey with DCLK began back in 2019 when even Fortitude hosted one of their first initial meetings. And at that time, DCLK was just focused on the IT industry. It's wonderful to see how DCLK has expanded its reach to all industries. Congratulations, team, on this journey. Those very early conversations set a foundation for collaboration and community learning, and that keeps us, working with DCLK to date. Our commitment to respect and inclusivity has led us to partner with DCLK in many ways. Recently, we engaged in DCLK's 2024 International Women's and Men's Day series, where Fortitude employees participated as panelists on topics like work-life balance. Is it a gender issue? And many attended the masterclasses on gender inclusivity and wellness, gaining tools to advocate for equality, not only within Fortitude, but also in the broader communities. Looking back, the Fortitude team also joined DCLK in the Women's International Day event in 2023, and it also provided powerful DEI insights and local research that has continued to inform our own efforts in building an inclusive global workplace for Fortitude. As I mentioned, we aim to live our values, and tools like our culture canvas help us to bring caring and respect into every area of our work. We understand that our leadership teams or our HR teams may not always have all the answers, which is why we look to partners like DCLK to guide us in creating respectful workplaces. In Sri Lanka, a close-knit community, it's essential that we support and educate each other as we work towards inclusive and uplifting environments. If I was to just move on to HRP, the Association of HR Professionals, we have a long-standing commitment to diversity and inclusion. In fact, we hosted one of the very first panel discussions on diversity back in 2019 with Barney helping to lead that early conversation. Today, HRP remains dedicated to fostering partnerships and offering resources that empower organizations to build respective, inclusive workplaces across various sectors. So thank you, Shehara, for putting up that small activity, and I wanted to hear everyone's thoughts on, what do they think is the biggest barrier to creating a respectful workplace. And I saw a lot of things coming up like unconscious bias, culture, leadership styles, personal attitudes. So yes, they're all barriers. And see, when you start on a journey, there'll be many barriers, right? But I think what you need to do is pick on those maybe top 2 or 3 barriers and just start there. Because if you start thinking of all the different barriers, and you kind of address each of them a little, you might not exactly get to where you, but culture, definitely, it's a key. For example, at Fortitude, for us to do our culture canvas, it took us 2 years. We started from our trainees to our executives, to our senior executives, we used a bottom-up approach. It took us 2 years, but we were patient and we are glad we have one. But yes, we have it and we are rolling it out and getting people to live it. So I'm sure all this input will also be helpful to DCLK to design future programs for all of us. So let me end with a quote from Maya Angelou. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. People will never forget how you made them feel. So let's all commit to creating workplaces where respect is felt and not just spoken about. Thank you. Over to you, Shade.
Thank you so much, Osh, and thank you so much for ending on that note. I think it amazes me that we have these conversations today and our priorities have actually been to bring back respect. Again, I just allude to what's happening around us globally, and the fundamental breaches of respect when it comes to one another as human beings. So it's now more than ever, it's so important that, we make this a priority. Osh, 2 things I picked up on was your culture canvas and how you've been able to embed this component of respect in your culture canvas. And so that's made it easier for you to sustain these practices. And also the fact that you've had to prioritize your barriers. And I thought that was so important because you will face multiple, and we've got a whole list in our chat box at the moment. Which just shows us how many we will have to overcome. But I guess it just comes down to maybe prioritizing a few, as Osh mentioned, and seeing what you can overcome and making little strides in the right direction, because it will all come together over a period of time. So thank you so much, Osh, for that. And so on that note, I'd like to quickly hand over to our next speaker, who's going to talk to us a little bit about senior HR leadership engagement and key takeaways from the Respectful Workplace agenda. We have Inoka Dias with us. Once again, Inoka, thank you so much for your time. She's the Senior Director, Human Resources at Virtusa. She's leadership and personal coach and NLP personal and business practitioner, also a hobbyist photographer. Very interesting. Hi, Inoka. So on that note, I'd like to welcome you to the engagement, to the discussion today, and ask you to talk to us a little bit about what your experience has been like.
Hi, Shehara. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. And I'm so very grateful to be here with all of you today. So when I attended the program about 1.5 years back, I think what first caught my attention was, the word respectful workplace. Because being in HR, I've heard this workplace has been called different names. And to know that there was a program around respectful workplaces was very intriguing to me. And I'm very glad that I sat through those days and met some of you who are here today, as well as met new people that evolved into, doing different things in our organizations along that way. something that got me personally to think about a little bit more deeply is what is respect. It's a label that we give a lot of definitions to. Since the program, I think for me, that definition has evolved into something about how do we sort of give regard to other people's feelings, who they are and where they come from. And then that kind of helped me bridge the gap between is there a gap between respect and inclusivity, and that I realized, okay, there is something that converges there. So the program really embedded some sharp thinking along the way, and that has stuck through with me, and which has helped me, I think, also to shift the way I see things. For example, I think, how we look at who we are as individuals become very important. And that is what will help us also look at other people in different perspectives. When we start recognizing that people come from different spaces and places, that helps us, build our behavior or shift our thinking towards looking at people, communities, organizations, and even a nation very differently. So I thought of 3 things that I could talk about as learnings from the program for me, and which have stuck through the last 1.5 years since I attended the program. The first for me was learning the definitions of the definitions of what is a respectful workplace, and being respectful towards people involved, in that workplace. If you look at, when we look at policies and procedures, there's a lot around disciplinary policy, harassment policy. What I really appreciated about the whole idea is that we can look at things very respectfully. So our choices of words, how we look at people, for example, we always talk about an accused. But during the program, I learned to call them a respondent. It resonates with the fact that, everybody is innocent and until they're proven guilty. So how do you look at people through a different lens, and to respect them wherever they come from, and to give that rightful hearing? I think that was a sharp first message for me. And also the lot of definitions, examples that came through regarding bullying and harassment. Some of which I really didn't have perspective to, because we have standard ways of looking at it, and then got me thinking, am I actually bullying or harassing someone not knowingly? So it embedded a deeper sense of consciousness in me to see, okay, am I demonstrating, traits of bullying and harassment without my knowing it, in my words, in my behavior, in how I talk to people? So I think that was a very, very key learning that was one of the very key first learnings through the program. The second one, if I were to go, is how do we inculcate a respectful workplace? And I think it goes far deeper into building a culture of care and trust. So Osh spoke about it, Ravi spoke about embedding this into a DNA of a company. So throughout the last few months also, that's something we have been trying to do, is to, how we recraft or curate our policies and processes in a way that it resonates words and, or communicates a culture of caring, a culture that respects people. So these are some of the initial things we have started here, and that we've started along the way to also embed into what we do, because it has to become a part of a life cycle. So it comes from the individual to a team. So it's about educating our teams or people that we work closely with. And it's also, how do we bring it into the ways that we work? So doing that takes time. It takes time to show result. It's not like, doing a program and getting an immediate outcome out of it. It's about shifting patterns of behavior, shifting thinking, getting people to buy into it. And that takes time, but it's important to be persistent about it and stick through to the end, because the result is for communities and people and organizations together. Third thing is the entire program, the respectful way of learning, the learning style through that. It was, conducted in a very small group. I think that helped, because that helped us all get very comfortable. It created a trusting environment, which also simulated how we need to bring it into our organization in a way. So with a lot of practical examples, and it enabled us to also share our own insights, sort of dive in deeper into how do we do things differently, learn from each other from different organizations, because even at the time I learned, I was in tech and education, but there were representatives from banks to other industries. How do you take it to, different parts of our own organizations and communities? So it was a very respectful, very solid learning style. And I would say that the trainers were also very passionate about what they were doing. So the learning was that much deeper as a result of that.
Sure.
So in essence, I think to just wrap up, the program taught me that there is another lens to all of this, another perspective towards making a shift first in the hearts and minds of people, and that would invariably result in creating a culture of care and respect in your organization. So that's from me, Shen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Inuka. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable and considering this the safe space that it is to share, I think, your self-reflections and that introspection you did on, how important it was for you to question, where you were coming from as an individual. I don't think any of us really actively sit out there and think, we could be doing anything wrong. But it is so important that we look at how our behavior could be impacting somebody else. So thank you so much for sharing that with us and being open about the sort of transformation that it had in your life as well. We appreciate it. So just in the interest of time, I'm going to quickly move forward, although I'm completely inspired by all our speakers today. Next up, we have Dr. Dushanthan Subramaniam from Hema's Hospitals. He's director Hema's Hospitals, and he was also a participant of the 2-day training program of Respectful Workplaces. And I think it's just fantastic to have you with us today, Dr. Dushanthan, because you are also a part of the Anti-Sexual Harassment Committee in the organization. And Hema's Hospitals is a unique industry. Your workforce is very unique and diverse. So I'd like to hand it over to you to talk to us a little bit about what your experience has been like.
Thank you, Shehara. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, perfect.
And let me wish Bani and team and the DCLK for this launch. So I was thinking, when you look at respectful workplace, at its very concept, on a psychological basis, human mind is on constant lookout for a threat, right? When you go back to the old Stone Age, you're looking at a predator potential to come and sort of attack you at any point of time. So the human mind is basically trained to look out for threats. And then when you contextualize it to the current contemporary world, there is no more predator, right? Now, what are they endangered of? So basically anything that could affect their psychological safety, be it bullying, be it being disrespectful, be it being sexual harassment. These are things that are coming in the form of predators that they were quite scared of at that time, right? So you need to have people on their very best psychological safety for them to focus on the task at hand now, right? Because if people start ruminating over
matters that are disturbing them, there is a lot of working memory that is taken out of them, right? So that sort of takes away the productivity, the quality, the happiness of them, everything away. And then when you look at the rest of the people in the organization, you have employees coming from different backgrounds, right? Let's take youngsters who are coming from different companies. They have very minimal options to choose what is the sort of background they should come, what is the sort of company they should work. And they come from different cultures, different background, different educational qualification, ethnicities. And then when you put everybody together, it becomes more complicated, right? Now, what is those common behaviors that you need to make sure that prevails in an organization that will make sure that each and every employee feels safe and focused is something that we need to look at. And it's very simple to put those policies, like it was said, in a very sense. But making sure that it's being implemented and the people have the trust on the system effectively solidifies the notion of a respectful workplace, right? So if you look at HEMAS as a conglomerate, we give a lot of focus on this arena. We have a senior manager sitting at the HHL for DNI. We have a full team to focus on that. And how do we address this, right? First thing is, there are few things that we see that's predominantly impacting this area. One is the level of awareness among people, right? Like Inoka said, all right, now, what is a joke? How it is perceived? What is the line that I need to draw? And how it differs from individual to individual, right? Now, that knowledge and empowerment and the presence of mind needs to be brought into people. And then, as and when there is a problem arises, what's the stand that the organization takes place? What are those other things that respectful workplace will be prioritized over, right? Are we talking about a performer who is not so incongruent with respectful workplace behaviors? What is it that we are going to select, right? As an organization, so far, I feel that the long-term sustainability in terms of having the right culture is probably the top priority for us. So one of the things in creating that awareness is that we have started training people, and like Ravi said, there are 6 major BUs. We started decentralizing the knowledge so that people will be aware of and constantly made aware of what is it means of respectful workplace, what is it means by sexual harassment, what is it means by bullying. You know, like I said, after Bani's training, I actually thought there are certain things that we still need to know that falls into the category of bullying, right? So the decentralization, creating those points of knowledge, resources in each SBUs was something that we did. But if you still ask me, what is that one thing the people will start respecting and trusting the system, is that what is the stand the organization takes place, irrespective of the positions, irrespective of the contribution the person makes, when it comes to sexual harassment, when it comes to breaching the respectful workplace policies and procedures. Now, that is one thing that people are going to really look at and start building confidence, or otherwise, on the behavior of how it works. So we have a sexual harassment committee, which I'm chairing, and we have people from all SBUs, and communications are kept very well confidential, and the investigations are made clearly ring-fenced, so that both the survivor and the perpetrator both are within the right comfort zone. And the investigations are taken over and the right actions are being taken, so that builds a lot of confidence. Currently, the challenge is how do we connect with the people, the vast majority that are not connected digitally with us in the organization. That's where we create those point of contacts to go around and create that awareness. It's a work in progress. There's a lot of communications that's going on. The strength of the leadership that's chairing these committees are well looked at, and it has to be unequivocal, it has to be unbiased in terms of carrying on these investigations as and when it arises. So it's a two-way. One is to create those awareness. The other side is to ensure that the right stand is taken by the organization when it comes to matters with this effect. So I think that pretty much covers up of what I wanted to share.
Sure.
And thank you very much for the opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Dushantan. I think two key things that you alluded to and something that was so powerful was, when push comes to shove, what is it that your organization is going to prioritize over respect? And that really puts things into perspective. And the second thing was around, I think, what goes beyond some of these initiatives, and chairing the Anti-Sexual Harassment Committee at the moment for your organization, I think is an example of the support that's needed beyond, just the Respectful Workplace training program, right? So what do you have in place already, and what are the tools and avenues that you're going to use to leverage the collective efforts of a lot of people who really do want to drive this agenda in their organizations and create a more conducive and inclusive workplace. Thank you so much, Dr. Dushantan, for sharing your thoughts. We have one last speaker with us today before we wrap up. And again, going to be a very interesting perspective. And I know there's not one of you here today who's not heard of Great Place to Work. So we have Shanika Ratnayaka with us today. She's the co-founder and director CEO of Great Place to Work Sri Lanka. She works with organizations to help them build a high trust, high performance culture in their organizations, with a vision for making Sri Lanka a great place to work. And I think you've already made great strides, Shanika, in this front. But I think you're here today to talk to us a little bit about, what you do, what you enable organizations to do. And I think on the back of, key component of the Great Place to Work initiative, which is the engagement survey, what are some of the components of DEI that need to be driven? I'd like to invite you to talk to us a little bit about, your experiences and what you'd like to leave with us today around what you think is really supporting organizations to take their learnings forward, especially on the back of the engagement survey. So over to you.
Thank you, Shahara, and thank you, Bani, also for inviting me, and congratulations to DCLK on launching Respectful Workplaces. As we've heard throughout the day, or throughout the morning at least, we already know and appreciate that respect is fundamental to building a thriving organization. So I'm not going to focus too much there. But to dive directly into, and as Shahara mentioned, I'm sure I can see from people in the audience, there are several of you who are already familiar, who are working with us, or have had the opportunity to connect on different aspects of workplace culture. But what I will try to do is I will draw the connect between what Respectful Workplaces do and what we do, and how they're not mutually exclusive. They're very much an integrated part of what the organization needs to focus on, and therefore there will be benefits of working with both organizations and what you can take away from each of our specializations and the work we do, right? So quickly, I will first to draw some context, try to establish, who we are and what we do and why we do what we do, so that in the context, the model of our assessment, the approach we take and how it connects with respectful work will have also a little more meaning, right? So basically, Great Place to Work is a global authority on workplace culture. And our mission, of course, is to help every organization, every place, we say, become a great place to work for all, right? So hold on to that for all, because this for all going forwards is what really interconnects us with the whole diversity, equity piece and inclusivity piece as we go along in this conversation. Because in the past, when I say in the past, I mean before 2017, we used to just measure great workplaces, right? Not great workplaces for all. So the integration or extending it and our definition itself to a great place to work for all is how we make it a completely inclusive aspect in terms of the process of measuring organizations and whether they are great for all, not for, we say, not for some, not for many, but for all, right? So how is it that we do this? So what is the process? I mean, basically our engagement in this market is to help organizations build high trust, high performance workplace cultures, as Shehara mentioned. And why is it that we do this? Because we firmly believe that work has the power to transform society, right? I mean, someone did mention, I think it was Ravi, or maybe someone else who said, we spend a good 2/3 of our day or our life working, right? And if it's not meaningful and if it is not effective and if you're not contributing and it's not impactful and purposeful and you don't feel included and valued and respected, then it's very hard to be continuing to do this day in, day out and giving our best, right? And being passionate about what we do, right? So it really has the power to transform society. And that is the key reason why Great Place to Work contributes to society in this way, by helping every organization become a great place to work for all, right? So our model revolves around 3 key relationships in a workplace, right? And we say, basically, those 3 key relationships revolve around employee. We put the employee in the organization, which is each of us, in the center, and we say that every employee has a relationship with management. You may be management, but there may be some others that you're reporting to. There is a relationship with your job, the work that you do in the organization, the role that you play. And there is also a relationship with other team members, because we're not on our own in our workplace environment, right? So our definition of a great workplace encompasses these 3 key relationships. And we say a great place to work is where you trust the management that you work for, have pride in the work that you do, which is their job, and enjoy the people that you work with, which is your team. And we say this needs to happen in an environment of trust, of course, but truly great organizations are when we see these relationships pan out in a consistent manner, right? Where it's every employee in the organization, this is the inclusivity part, every employee in the organization is having this good relationship with management, job, and the team. Therefore, they're able to build a trusting environment where they're proud to work for and say they are part of this company or this workplace, and also enjoy working with each other in a team and in a community-like feeling in order to deliver the total purpose of this organization, right? So we said that is important in the sense that it is effective for everybody in the organization. It's not based on where they come from and who they are and what they do or the role they play in the organization. It's not whether they are the tea lady in the organization or the managing director, or whether they're working in a factory line, in a factory setting, or whether they are frontline sales team, management, or white collar, blue collar workers. It does not matter. We're saying it is important, it's an imperative that every one of them feels this positive relationship in the organization. So of course, you're not going to see, when you measure, for example, you're not going to see equal, right? So equity was equal. You're not going to see equal scores or equal kind of experiences that all of these demographics, all these different groups of people are experiencing across age, gender, tenure, department, branch, or the activity or the BU that they might be in, or the role that they play in the organization. That is not what we're measuring or we're looking for, but we're trying to create consistency, right? And consistency across the things that we measure, if it is related to trust, or if it's related to how the camaraderie, the community-like feeling. It shouldn't be that one team has it extremely well, or one group, or one gender, and others are not having a positive experience across these. Right? So this is the environment that we're trying to create. And why does this become important, and how does it connect to the work in relation to creating respectful workplaces, right? So this is basically, it aligns directly with the philosophy of what Great Place to Work does, because we're directly promoting respect across all levels of the organization, promoting, basically fostering trust and collaboration, which is very key for people to feel respected. In fact, we talked of these three key relationships and what we measure. Trust in itself is 85% of what we measure at Great Place to Work, right? And then trust is such a large area that this assessment tool that we use, the global standard assessment tool that we use, is called the Trust Index Survey. So the Trust Index actually measures 3 different components to understand the level of trust in itself, because as we say, it's so key, right? And in that, the breakup is we look at the levels of credibility, we look at the levels of respect, and we look at the levels of fairness that is within the organization in order to measure if it is truly a great place to work, right? So when you look at the respect component itself, that again is subdivided into 3 components that we measure, right? Because respect by itself is a very large area. And to understand the levels of respect in the organization, we look at the amount of support employees and individuals get in their role and the job that they're doing. We measure the levels of collaboration that you're experiencing in the organization at all levels, right? Whether we are creating that truly inclusive collaborative environment. And also we're looking at the sense of caring practices and the implementation of caring within the organization. And this is not just about, creating or building policies, as Inoka said and several others mentioned, but it is about demonstrated caring. Are we actually demonstrating empathetic leadership at supervisor level? Are we handling it in an equitable manner? Different people have different needs, right? Are we rolling out demonstrated caring? And these get measured, right? At your individual work group level, at your individual team level, and at your individual manager level, etc. To understand whether the policies that an organization have put in place, practices, policies, processes, in relation to these areas, right? How you support, how you contribute towards idea generation, how do you contribute towards planning and new innovation activities within the organization, right? In a collaborative environment. You may have great policies and processes with regard to this, but how do they get rolled out, right? So we're measuring the actual experience that employees are having in the organization when these initiatives or activities get rolled out. So DEIB initiatives, we don't just stop at the DEI, right? We roll it out all the way to DEIB. We feel that the B for belonging is very key, because you could have a lot of diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives being rolled out, but if employees don't feel the sense of belonging and how they connect and what it means to them, then you're not going to get the full positive effect of rolling out key diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives in the organization, right? So one of the things that we're saying, or what we are actually summing up here, is to say that there is a great connection between the work that we're doing and helping organizations measure these aspects within the organization. What are employees experiencing across? How do they build this high trust environment, right? Because they need to make sure that in a high trust environment, there is a high sense of credibility, respect across these 3 components. It's a supportive environment, it's a caring, demonstrated caring environment, and it's a collaborative environment. Communication aspects are looked at. Therefore, we're bringing in listening, which becomes very important in terms of creating diversity as a strength. You know, if you are to make people feel included, then you need to have a good listening mechanism, right? Fairness is another key aspect under trust that we measure, right? And we said when we look at fairness, we measure the sense of equity employees have in the organization, whether it's impartial in terms of both recognition, ability to be promoted, and benefits and salary and pay, etc. That we might see have gender biases in organizations, for example. And the sense of justice. If someone feels that something unfair has happened, you have been harassed, or there is the communication norms are not being followed, or you are not being respected as an individual, or you have been deprived of opportunity, is there a sense of justice within the organization? Is there recourse? Are there methods in the organization and processes and practices being implemented that employees can use to be heard and to be understood, right? So basically, given that I have a very short time to bring this to the audience, I was just trying to focus on what aspects in our the work that we do connect with building respectful organizations, Shihara, and trying to elaborate how maybe our tools can be used to help organizations get these fundamentals into place. And getting them into place by itself is not enough. You need to measure and you need to build and sustain, right? It's all about also, as Ravi said, sustaining. So I think there is a lot of correlation between the work that you are doing and the assessments that we carry out, and we can certainly help organizations on their journey of building respectful workplaces as well. Yeah,
absolutely, Shanika. And I think that was a wonderful place for us to wrap up on also, because we've spoken about the business case. We've gone through so many lived experiences, from leadership to trainers and those who actually participated in the program. And now we've heard from you, because you've really helped our audience understand how they can actually start making some of their initiatives measurable, quantitative, and actionable, which is very much a part of sustaining these practices once they're embedded. So again, thank you so much for helping us wrap up on that note. I think it's going to be a brilliant tool for the organizations to take forward, and it'll go hand in hand with the work that we do through Diversity Collective in this space as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. So thanks everyone for sticking through. I think it's been a wonderful session. I know we're a little over time, but I think we've heard from fantastic speakers today who really helped you understand the business case for respectful workplaces and how it's going to impact your organizations. Now, I think all of you are waiting to find out what's next and the way forward. So to do so, I'd like to invite Ish to quickly run us through how can we get involved, Ish? What's next for us in the audience? We'd like to know more about what are the programs that are lined up and upcoming sessions, possibly within the year as well. So Ish is a part of the DCLK team. She's a human resource professional with over 25 years of experience locally and internationally. So we're very excited to have her on board. She's personally leading the Respectful Workplace project for Diversity Collective. So she will be your key liaison at most points throughout the next couple of months. Ish, over to you. Visra, we'd just like to have a look at our upcoming programs and standard offerings for Respectful Workplace, please.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's so great to see quite a few people taking part in this webinar. So I will keep this brief in the interest of time. If I could just show you the slide on what our plans are going to be in the future to roll out this initiative. Isra, are you able to? Okay, thank you. So we have planned a public program which is due to take place on the 28th of November. The venue hasn't been confirmed yet. Obviously, in time, we will let everybody know where it's to take place. This will be in-person training. Now, we've had several of these programs earlier as well. and Inoka, Dr. Dushanta, and several others on this call have taken part in these trainings earlier. This is actually a one-day program, and we are targeting decision makers in companies, basically the leadership. So it will cover basically an end-to-end process of what it means to create a respectful workplace. So we'll cover points on the behavior spectrum, identify barriers that exist, and Barney spoke about the roadmap earlier as well. So we'll cover the roadmap in detail so that we can give you tools and policies so that you can actually implement it at your workplace. And bystander intervention as well. Now we see so many people seeing, bullying, harassment, online harassment taking place, but what do they do about it? So basically, some people actually don't know what to do about it. So during this program, we'll also communicate ways of making bystanders actual active bystanders. So that program will take place on the 20th of November. We're hoping to have similar programs in the new year, starting from February 2025. Now, following on from this, if you feel that you need specific programs for your organization, for example, Hemas has been working with DCLK on their journey of creating respectful workplace. If you feel that you would like a similar offering, please get in touch with us. Because we can organize the same one-day workshop at your own workplace for company leadership. In addition, we also provide two-day workshops. Now, Inoka and Dr. Dushanta actually took part in the two-day workshop some time ago, a few months ago. Here, we are specifically targeting HR and legal teams to cover in-depth details of, what is required to go through that roadmap. We'll also be training focal points. Focal points are the people that, employees reach out to when they do have an issue at the workplace. And as a focal point, how do you behave? How do you receive complaints? And also, how do you go for remedial action? So all those points will be covered in depth during the two-day workshop. We can also organize 2 to 3 hour employee awareness sessions. Again, as you saw in the video, a lot of people are not aware of what bullying means, what sexual harassment means. It's become part of the culture that this is the way we do things here. People shout at each other, etc. So we can also provide these 2 to 3 hour employee awareness sessions. It can be either online or in person. So in the interest of time, I'll wind down there. If you would like to get in touch with us, please do so because we'll be sharing a link at the end of this webinar and hopefully a telephone number as well. If you're interested in any of these programs, please reach out. Thank you so much for taking part in the webinar. I'll pass this back to Shehara.
Thank you so much, Ish. I think that was fantastic. And for a lot of you who've been asking, this is what's lined up as next steps. Please do reach out to us. You can find us on our website. You can find us on LinkedIn, and we will put our contact details in the chat as well, so that you can reach out to us. And on that note, I'd just love to wrap up with reminding you that DCLK provides many other services beyond just the respectful workplace agenda. Tisri, if we can just go to our final slide for today. We do engage in training programs. So we do help you drive your larger DEI and belonging agenda in your organizations. We've already partnered with so many of you who are doing some fantastic work. So we have our masterclasses, we have our consulting fees, we have train the trainer programs, and we do a lot of work in this space already. So if you would like to reach out to us and have that initial connect, have that initial chat, figure out where you need to start from, where you're at the moment, how you can take this forward, then definitely reach out to us at Diversity Collective. Thank you so much for participating today. We'll be in touch. Do connect with us on our social media platforms as well. Thank you so much to all our speakers. That's all from us today.